Today's video is about horses. Well, actually, it's not about horses. It's inspired by horses. Horses were the spark for the idea. I have a friend who is running a sandbox game right now, and he's using an alternate rule set called Iron Heroes. And in Iron Heroes, it's still third edition Dungeons and Dragons, but it's all new classes and a new combat system. And none of the characters can cast spells, and there's no magic items. And the Iron Hero system basically makes characters that are as strong as D&D characters with magic items, but without magic items. None of that matters. I don't know why I'm talking about that. Well, I he has a blog. I suppose it should be called a blog, where his players write up accounts of the adventures that they have. And his adventures are very piecemeal, is the word I'm going to use for it. They're very entertaining to read, but what I noticed reading through his these accounts of the players is that everybody has a horse, except the dwarf. I think the dwarf has a horse and a mule, and I realize why he did this. Now, the area around his safe town is called Westhaven, and we've already talked in the comments about how many West Havens there are. It's nicknamed Westhaven. The town's actually called Annabelle, and they built a wall around it. And I think this wall encompasses an area 8 miles to the north, 8 miles to the south, and 20 miles inland. So you have this huge area. This wall was built to encompass this huge area. And the PCs, I mean, assuming you walk 3 miles an hour, which is just the average pace for a person, to walk the 8 miles to the northern gate, assuming it is directly north of the city, is going to take you 2.5, 3 hours. So wasting, 3 hours of your adventuring day just walking to the gate and then 3 hours to walk back. So that's 6 hours. If you want 8 hours of sleep, then that's 14 hours total. So you have only 10 hours of adventuring time. And you're going to kind of wear yourself out with all of this marching. And God forbid you want to head out through the western part of the gate, because that's 20 miles you'd have to go. So that's 6.5 hours, almost 7 hours just to get to that part of the wall. So his players have mounts, and that makes sense. Now with the mounts, they can easily get to the wall in a short amount of time, and then they can even range farther afield as they head out of the city and out of the safe zone that is encompassed by this wall. And it lets them get further and further in less time because they've got these horses, and so they're traveling much faster. And it also has the added benefit that if the PCs find a bunch of treasure, they have these horses to help them carry it. I mean, maybe they find a statue that they want to bring back, and so they drag it behind them. I don't know. The dwarf character, he rides a horse and he has a mule tied to the horse, and apparently the mule died at some point, and the dwarf didn't notice, so his horse was just dragging this dead mule along the ground behind him. They called the mule Anchor. So I was thinking about the PCs having horses, and I'm opposed to it in my game. It works perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with letting the PCs have horses. But I think in my game I don't want them to, for a couple reasons. One, it's quicker to get to the wall in my game. I don't have quite the vast expanse that he does as a safe zone, so the time to travel to the wall is not that much of a factor. And two, I don't want them to get too far inland at the beginning. I want them to stick really close to the wall. And if they head out, like if they have a horse and they head out in one straight direction from the wall, they're going to end up covering too much earth, too much distance for my tastes. I don't want the low level areas to stretch on for so many miles. Um, just because I suck at coming up with things, and so I want to keep the distances shorter. Actually, that means I have to make up more stuff as I go. an unintended consequence. So I want them to have to range out on foot. You have to set out on foot from the city, you set out on foot outside of the wall, and you walk around on foot out there. And it's insane. And the people in town I want the players to have this impression that you are this insane adventurer. Sane people do not become adventurers. Sane people do not leave the safety of the wall in order to tramps around in the uncharted wilderness that is incredibly dangerous. And to do it on foot as well. But I want the on foot period, I want it to be there at the beginning of the campaign, but I do want it to go away. And so the point of this, I suppose, is just that I thought about the flavor that I'm going for, and I determined that horses right at the beginning is not a good idea. If you think about it, the way that I thought about it, and I know I'm starting to ramble here, I thought about where are these PCs getting these horses? Well, they go buy them from the horse vendor. Well, with the way that I wanted the campaign to run, the history of the area, there are no extra horses lying around. Nobody breeds horses right now because there's no reason for them. The only people who use horses are the garrison troops who use the horses to run patrols along the wall, and then the farmers who have their draft horses for, pulling carts and stuff while they farm. And so to have someone who's raising horses to sell, especially people who, like PCs who are going to want to buy like war horses that are trained, that isn't really uh, it doesn't make sense for the game world for that to be there. There obviously is someone who raises the horses and trains them for the garrison, but I doubt that the horses are in such great supply that the garrison cares to sell, five of them to an adventuring party. There might even only be five horses. Who knows? It probably are more. There probably are more than five horses, but so I wrote up a post on this on my blog. I probably should have just showed that. There are no extra horses. What farmer is going to give up his horse? He needs that horse to farm and to make his living. The garrison's not going to give up horses because they need the horses to patrol the wall. And I mean, if you tried to buy a horse off the garrison, the people who live in the town of Wyndhaven are going to be pissed because now that's one less guard patrolling the wall and keeping them safe. You could say, "Oh, well, I'm going to head out and make it safe." Well, no, you're the batshit insane guy who's going to march out past the safe wall and do battle with the untold teeming minions of evil that are gathered out there. So that only leaves the fact that you're going to have to either wait for horses to come, and it does kind of make sense that at some point someone's going to come in with a ship with supplies, and horses might be among them. I mean, that's how horses got here. By here, I mean North America. They were brought over. Or you have to wait for a horse to be born. Or you really have to do something special to convince someone to give up a horse. Or you could just be a total jerkwad and steal one, which would be a very bad idea if you ever bring that horse back into town. It's also a bad idea to leave the horse tied up outside of the walls where it's going to get eaten alive. So it gives the option for PCs to get a horse, but it puts this sort of time constraint on it. You can't get a horse too quickly, you got to wait for it. The two methods that I'm hoping the PCs will use: one, random encounters with wild horses. The PCs, traipsing about in the wilderness, come across a herd of wild horses. They grab one, they subdue it, they break it using some handle animal skill checks, and over a little bit of time, still with that time constraint, they raise their own loyal steed. And then they can venture afield. And the other one is, instead of capturing a wild horse, they actually just capture a wild monster that can be used as a steed. An owl bear, which would be a really bad idea, but it's a possibility. Or the more common, like giant wolves, griffins, unicorns, Pegasi. Pegasus is one. These normal fantasy mounts that you see that come later. And since we wanted the horses in that further range to come later anyway, then having those like adventures. I mean, a PC might want a mount, and someone could tell me they want to go on an adventure, and this could even be run solo, where they head out into the wilderness specifically looking to capture a mount. And then on wild monster encounters, when someone happens to encounter a monster that can be used as a mount, they can put a note up in the inn, and everybody knows. Okay, well, if I'm looking to go catch a mount, I can head out there, and then using tracking or skill checks or whatever, we can actually modify if they find one on the wandering monster table and all that. But I think that for me in my game and with these ideas, not having the horses just available for sale is a better idea. I went way too much on horses. I was going to talk about other stuff too, but I guess I rambled to the end of the video. Bye bye.